In this video, I'm talking about punching. Okay, not really, not that kind of punching. Actually, we're talking about punching in grass. Fishing, yes, we're talking fishing. This is your bass guy after all. And I'm Wesley Littlefield. And no, I'm not any good at karate. I'm not any good at boxing, as you can clearly tell. But I do enjoy a little bit of punching every now and then. And today I'm going to walk you through my quick setup to get you punching really fast. Now, this punch rig is actually very similar to a Texas rig, and really it's essentially a pinned or a pegged Texas rig. You know, if you really want to break it down to the simplest form, that's what I would compare it to. Before we get into the rig, I'm just going to give a brief overview of what the heck punching actually is. So punching is when you've got like thick matted vegetation, you've got grass on top of the water that you need to get a lure through. Usually, you know, you think pitching and flipping, you think a jig, and while you can do this with a jig, even with a weed guard, jigs tend just to get hung up more often than not. And that's where this punch rig comes in. It's rigged weedless like a Texas rig, but keeping that weight close to the hook ensures that it punches through the top grass and gets into the fish's face where they bite it. So that's kind of basically what you're trying to do in the simplest form. So now, what the heck is a punch rig? A punch rig is a heavy weight, usually at least half an ounce up to 2 ounces sometimes, depending on how thick that vegetation is. And then you've got your pegs right here. They're just like little rubber stoppers. And then most guys use a flipping hook. And of course, your soft plastic creature bait. Pick your favorite kind of creature bait and use it. Now, you'll see that my weight actually has a skirt. Sometimes you can buy the skirt by itself and put it on there, or you can buy it like I did with the weight and the skirt already attached, or you can even just buy the bullet weights without the skirt and use it for punching. The skirt, all it's doing is making the profile look a little bit bigger. So if you know that the fish are looking to have a bigger meal, especially a bigger fish, and you're trying to weed out the smaller fish, then go with the skirt. If you're looking just to get a bite, even if it's a little fish, go without the skirt. All right, so let's rig it. First of all, we're gonna use braided line because it's strong and you're in thick vegetation, so you're gonna really need to force the fish out of the cover. So braided line's strong, it's good for it. That's what I recommend using. But you can also use fluoro or mono because usually you're not fishing very deep. So even though it floats, you can still use mono. Just make sure that it's really strong. I wouldn't go like a 10 or a 12. I'd be pushing 20 pounds minimum. This here is 50-pound braided line, and all we're gonna do is run it through this loop of my pegs and then put the peg on there. Run the peg all the way on there past the tag, and now the peg is on there. That simple. Next, we're going to put the weight. Pushed it through. There we are. Now we've got our weight. Now I'm going to tie my hook on using my favorite knot. Well, braided line, it's a little bit bigger pain, but use your favorite braided line knot. So now I've got my hook tied on, I've got my weight on the line, and I've got the peg. I'm not going to push the peg down all the way yet. First, we're going to put our creature bait on there, our soft plastic. Now, to rig the soft plastic, it's like Texas style. We're going to go in the top just a little bit, come back out, twist it up and around, pushed it past the hook keeper. And that's why so many guys like a flipping hook, is because it's got the bait keeper. It's like a little plastic keeper that keeps that plastic from sliding down the hook. And then you're going to figure out where it goes through straight. Run it through, making sure everything's straight. Poke it back through. And I always prefer to rehook it in just a little bit. That way it remains weedless. Now you can push your peg back down over it. And that is it. That is the punch rig. As you can tell, this punch rig is very similar to a Texas rig or a jig. And another very similar lure, jig, whatever you want to call it, the Tokyo rig, is another way you can actually punch. And if you want to learn more about the Tokyo rig, I actually have a video down below me right now that you can check out, and I'll see you in that video. But before that, don't ever forget that education is important, but fishing is essential.